G'day folks, welcome to this report of turns 9 and 10 of this full campaign game of Atlantic Wall. I am part way through the 8th of June, 2 turns in, the AM turn and the midday turn, and this is the situation. Now again, I'll start out at Utah because this is where things have been pretty quiet. All the divisions out here are, all the headquarters out here are unsupported, so they can't supply their divisions. These units can still, they become out of communication. They can still attack, but if they do so, they become out of supply. And you can see we launched an attack on Semur-Église, which was successful, and we've been crossing the Medway River into this sort of open ground, well, not open ground, but bocage beyond. This is the 82nd in this area. Now, they don't want to engage in any more combat. They're just trying to sort of move up to these German positions. The 243rd Division has responded by moving into this area. You can kind of see how the Germans have done well to pen those the 4th and the 82nd into the area. The 90th Division has also started to arrive, and they plan to come out around here, move through the 101st into this sort of open area beyond here, and their goal is to cut off the Cotentin Peninsula. We do have some elements of the 243rd out here as well. This is their headquarters, so they can supply sort of left and right. And they have recaptured La Haye du Puits, which was briefly held by a battalion of the 90th Division. Further around, the 101st has been pretty static, again, unsupported. They've surrounded a small group of German units who are now out of communication. Some advanced elements have rushed down the roads to hold some crossroads here and here. But as we move along, we're looking at the 29th and the 1st Division as they advance past or out from Omaha Beach. You can see still clearing those last remnants of beach defenders. I've got 3 battalions down there to get the work done as fast as possible. 2 decent stacks of sort of companies and resistance nests left. The rest of the 29th out here on the left, moving towards St. Lo, finally meeting 21st Panzer Division. So 21st Panzer Division stretching along here, occupying these key roads leading towards St. Lo. Then you have the 1st Division on the right here, actually on the American left, but in this area, quite focused and driving towards Cornwall, just down here in the south. So yeah, 29th heading towards objective here, 1st Division heading towards objective here. They've made sort of contact, but haven't had any combat yet. We did have a big battle at Bayeux, which the Germans won. They only hold this with an engineer battalion and a little armoured company. But they won that battle, demoralised the attackers, forced them to sort of pull back, suffered a loss. It's going to be pretty tough to take because that is a decent stack, and like I said, I've moved the bulk of my forces beyond. Even with artillery support, the Allies failed to get a decent role in that attack. 50th Division has been driving down here towards Villers-Bocage. Again, no combat in this area. They hold Tilly-sur-Seulles here, and they are facing Panzer-Lehr and the 346th Division holding this area in the centre. To the right, again, I mentioned in the last video how the 12th SS Panzer Division has really stretched out, and this is where we actually did see some combat. There were 2 battles. I think the first one was around here, and these are, I think, the 50th Division. Yep, successful in their attack here, causing a step loss on that battalion and a retreat. They're advancing. And the second combat took place, I think it was right next door here. And that was unsuccessful, and they had to pull back. But then the Germans had to reform their line, and they've ended up pulling back a hex anyway. So the Allies now have their artillery in battery in some places, so they could draw on artillery support, but the Germans also have their artillery behind the lines here in a decent position, covering a broad front, and were able to draw on that final defensive fire. No combat along here. You can see 51st, 3rd Canadian, 3rd Infantry, 6th Airborne Division here, finally beginning to move out from their defensive positions. launched an attack here. I think it was 3 attacks actually. 1, 2, 3. One of them was a feint diversionary attack, which was obviously a failure. This one was a success down here, and they forced the defenders back. They've now swung around. And the third one caused a retreat, which the Germans converted into a step loss. And then they decided to retreat anyway. So I was going to hold my ground, but of course when you hold your ground, you're still in those enemy zones of control, so you'll have to attack. And so the 711th Division has made the decision to pull away from Merville and defend the road to Caen, I guess. So yeah, 6th Airborne Division on the attack, just with a few little attacks testing the German positions. Look, the problem for the Germans is this line is so stretched out through here. This is clear terrain, so you're rolling on a better row of the CRT. And when, the British just need to poke a little hole and it causes problems. And they're not getting reinforcements. The Germans aren't getting reinforcements until I think 2 more turns. I think maybe the 12th they get the next wave. So a little bit of trouble around this area here in particular. This is a stack of just 9. Okay, so it's hard to get combat here. You'll only have 2 hexes, but nonetheless, you can get 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes now attacking this clear position. It's the Allied turn next. I can tell you there'll definitely be combat here. And this is without air support as well. I should point out, the weather roll for this day was storms. So not only is there no air support, but there is very limited supply for headquarters. You may notice I've started putting the little white markers on these HQs to give me a clear visual indicator of what units are supplied. So the 7th Armoured, for example, are unsupplied, whereas the 50th are. All these divisions along here are. This is where I wanted to. It's kind of tells the Germans where I'm attacking, basically, but supported means all their units are in supply and can engage in combat. I was really just moving the 7th Armoured up to prepare for basically future days. The 1st Division, I wasn't planning to attack with them. I was hoping just to sort of manoeuvre to be in position. And the same with most of these around here. This is just a sort of getting into position around the area. So, yeah, look, 21st Panzer Division has done well to cover this area. They now block all the main roads through to Saint-Lô. You've got some other elements of the 7th Army Troop out here. This is a very unusual formation with no headquarters, and I don't know what they do, if they're always sort of out of supply or what. But look, their job is really just to block the roads and be a last line of defence. We're not seeing a lot. There was a brief sort of German delay somewhere around here. When the Germans withdraw from a hex, when they're in the zone of control of an American or Allied unit, they can place a delay marker. And they did that around here somewhere. They just withdrew. But it hasn't been happening a lot. I really thought this would be a pretty important rule because there's this big cup of delay markers. It means basically that the Germans have to begin their turn in the zone of control of American unit in Bocage. And that just doesn't happen very often. Or at least it hasn't happened very often yet. Maybe the Germans, it's interesting how the decisions they make on the first turn have huge repercussions. I would have liked doing this all over again. I would have brought 21st Division straight out towards Bayeux, and I think the lines would be a lot further, a lot closer to the beaches. Because they didn't do that, this is where they're now fighting. So yeah, they've given the Allies probably that much extra ground than they needed to. So there it is. Like I said, I'm about to play through the PM turn on the 8th of June. Then there'll be the night turn. There will still be a round of intense Allied combat. Just because we don't have air support doesn't mean we can't continue driving. Mainly around us is this clear area here. This is where we're getting the best, not necessarily the most favourable odds, but the best opportunities to scare the Germans, I guess, and force them to respond. the clear terrain just is about 2 column shifts better than the bocage. So when you're fighting in bocage, you're basically giving the Germans 2 column shifts. And again, yeah, things very quiet out around Utah. There's been a bit of maneuvering, but not a lot of combat. Yeah. So yeah, stay tuned, folks, and I'll report back soon on what's happening here.